Hey everybody, and welcome back once again to the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast. This is episode 30. John and Wendy talk to Ben Eubanks. I'm your host, John.
And I'm Wendy.
Wendy, how have you been?
I've been very well. It's coming on the end of summer here. Got to start doing some back to school shopping. How about you?
I had a child take senior pictures today, and
Oof.
Yeah, and my wife's getting ready to get her classroom back together and fun stuff. But we wanted to bring back a recent segment that we were super excited about and got a lot of great feedback about. Yeah. We have a couple more HR superheroes that we wanted to talk briefly about before we introduce our guests. So, Wendy, do you want to talk a little bit about those folks?
Sure. So recently we've had a couple of our good friends get some new opportunities with sharing information with young professionals. Shout out to Claire Petrie and Amanda Bruns. But shout out to them for all of the great work they're doing on helping young professionals in HR grow in their career, become better, and putting out information specifically for them through SHRM. Claire recently announced some work that she's doing there, and I know that Amanda's been working on a blog with young professionals, and I believe she's partnering with Lauren on that.
Yes, with Lorena.
Yes, yep. Lorena, thank you. Oh my God, I'm butchering names tonight.
It's exciting. Obviously, SHRM's got a lot of different focus areas, and it's nice to see that the young professionals we know that have both been part of the show, and Lorena hopefully will be on very, very soon as well, but both have an opportunity to communicate to those other young professionals about things that they have done to be successful. I think we're both big fans of Claire and Amanda both, and so just wanted to give them a superhero shout out and congratulate them and wish them all the best as they continue to develop those young professional blogging skills. So.
Definitely, because there's a lot of great stuff in it. I love the focus that SHRM is taking with the young professionals to help grow them.
Agreed. Well, we're not going to go any longer without introducing our guest, and I have to open before the bio. Yes. I have to explain for those of you listening that don't know, Ben Eubanks is the first and only person that I know of that I had never spoken to but woke up and was sharing a room with at SHRM 18. We talked online. We were both looking for a roommate, and it worked out great. I basically said, hey, I'm an old man that doesn't stay out late. He said, I'm a young guy with a bunch of kids, and this is one of the times I get away from home. We're both very quiet. Hopefully he will say I was fairly peaceful too, but I was working early Monday morning, and he woke up, and I looked at him and said, hey, man, it's nice to meet you. And that's how I wanted to open this podcast, because I'm sure people are going to laugh and scratch their heads and go, what in the world is that all about? Wendy, I'll let you make the formal introduction, and we will get going. If you can top that.
That's the thing. That's what I'm like, John, you just need to tell your story, and that's the introduction to Ben.
That's good enough. Goodness gracious. Come on now.
What else can we do? I mean, Ben is a speaker, a blogger, and all-around HR expert, which is why we're chatting with him here tonight. So I'm just going to welcome you, Ben, because I cannot top that with anything that you would have shared with me, and ask you our first question, which is, what is in your glass?
Wendy, I'm going to talk through you tonight and not speak to the other guy. I'll just talk to you. I'll ask you if I want to talk to him now. The thing in my glass is high-quality H2O. I'm actually on the verge of doing another caffeine kick and trying to get rid of it, get off of it again now that I can't say that our baby's waking up anymore at night, and so I'm trying to get off of the dew and all the other caffeine stuff, and so I'm just going straight water.
Sounds good. Nothing wrong with that.
Replenish. So Ben, as I said, roommate, it was a tremendous opportunity to meet you, and we talked quite a bit. We didn't really talk though about kind of how you got started in this business. So I always ask, how did you get started in HR, and then how did you particularly get into this focus with the technology and analytics component that you are in now?
So I've got to tell you, and I hate people do this in like an interview, but I'm going to start like way back and not tell you the whole story, but this all started when I was a kid. I wanted to be in HR when I was a kid. Okay. Number one, the funny answer is I was the older middle child, so I had none of the position authority, but I had to get a lot of things done. And so there was a lot of influencing and trying to negotiate between all the parties. That's the funny answer. The real answer is my parents owned a small business. And so I always saw the trouble they had with hiring people and trying to pay them and trying to give them good benefits and like all those like just core things that you deal with as a small business owner. And as I kind of got a little bit older, I thought, they've always had that problem for as long as I can remember. So when I get to school, I'm going to go for something like management and try to figure out how to solve those problems of hiring people and training them and everything else. And I got to college, and one of our professors said, "Hey, I want you to write this paper on this thing called human resources." I'm like, ugh, that sounds terribly boring. And so I started looking into it. I'm like, wait a minute, this is exactly what I've always wanted to do. And so I changed my major right then and pursued HR. So from the very first moment, I knew that that's what I wanted to do.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yes. Top that, John.
Oh no, I'm one of those people that kind of landed in it, But how? I guess then. So once you got in, how did you get to the kind of the space that you're in now?
Okay,
what was
sorry,
the interest?
I was all excited about telling that story. So I got into HR doing the grunt work like everybody else, right? I filed 50 bazillion things and kept working my way up. And I mean, there was the company I worked for. There was so much turnover that I was often doing someone's new hire paperwork and the next day doing their term stuff. So it was just like a constant churn. It was just it was a crazy place to be. And moved on from there. We'll talk about kind of networking a little bit, but I made some connections through the local HR chapter, and someone else said, "Hey, you should apply for this other job." And so I moved up into another role, and eventually was leading HR for a small company, a startup company. And had the opportunity all along. I was doing this blogging stuff on the side and everything else. And one of my friends who I had met online, I didn't share a room with them. It's the first opportunity to meet them. We actually planned a conference together without ever having met each other before. And so she had taken a job at an analyst firm. Said, "Hey, I know you like speaking. I know you like writing. I'm doing that now as a full-time job. Would you be interested in that?" I'm like, "I don't know. I love HR. I love having this impact on the people that are kind of under my span of control. I love the work that I do, but I also enjoy this other stuff. I just don't know if I'd like to do that all the time. Would I wake up every morning thinking, oh, great, I've got to write today, instead of being excited about it?" And so I said, I'll give it a try. I'm young enough to make a change and go back if I don't like it. And I ended up loving it because I had the opportunity not just to impact the people kind of under my roof, but under thousands of roofs. I got to work with, consult with, and advise these huge companies, brand names around the world. And it was so much fun. And I really gravitated towards the technology piece because what I found was I love the high touch aspect of the work that I did in HR. I saw that as the companies got bigger, they got farther and farther away from that. But there are some tools, especially some of the newer AI type stuff, that can enable companies to really scale that high touch HR across the population. And that's what really excites me, is making the work a little more human, hopefully, and getting the human back into human resources. And so, again, long answer, but that's kind of how I got to where I am today, focused on that piece.
That's very cool. Just being able to watch that progression that you did there. I love it. So what trends are you now seeing when it comes to the organizations that you consult? Is there anything that you're like super excited about?
The AI stuff is really big, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But one of the things I'm super pumped about is like the idea of talent mobility and career mobility. There's a lot of things around that. We could spend 2 or 3 hours just digging into that piece of it because I really find it fascinating. But a lot of the research says that training and growing and developing people internally is better for the business, is better for the person, is better for everything than it is to just kind of turn them over and hire someone from outside. Some of Wharton's research says that if I hire an external person to come in and replace John because he's slacking on the job, that person's going to cost me about 20% more, and they're going to perform worse for 2 years on the job on average. And so there's so much evidence pointing towards companies that do a better job of marketing opportunities internally and recruiting their own people and things like that. And that stuff really excites me because there are some cool case studies and stories, and there's a lot of research there. And as an example, I talked to a financial institution a couple weeks ago. They have 40,000 employees, I think, something like that. And he said, we need help with this. I said, well, tell me, how many of your employee population, how many people would you put a number on it? Do you know what the skills are that they have at a granular level beyond their job title? He's like, maybe 15%. I'm like, that's it. Wow. I'm like, wow. So 85% of your employees, other than a job title, you have no clue what they can do. You didn't know that John's a huge comic book nerd, or you don't know that Wendy, has this kind of special background. Couldn't think of anything special off the bat,
That's
Wendy, sorry.
right.
But you can't think of anything really special about these people, you know, and you don't know anything about their backgrounds. You can't offer them another opportunity beyond what they're doing today and stuff. So anyway, that's one of the things. There's so many, but that's one of the things that really excites me is the fact that companies are getting a little smarter about let's keep people by building a career path and helping them see this vision for what they can be. Because I would say if you can't help that person envision a future with your company, they'll envision a future somewhere else. So it's I don't know, it's an interesting trend for sure.
Yeah. Well, you kind of proved your own point there.
It's funny because it's almost like everything old is new again, because we talk about loyalty and or engagement, and you think
Yes.
about companies. I don't know about you. My parents were both career teachers. It's a little different, but many of the people that I grew up with, their parents worked at the same places for 40 years, and
Yes.
and they certainly didn't come in knowing the senior level things, right? They brought them in. They obviously had some type of skill or ability that then they could groom and coach and ramp up. And isn't it interesting that we seem like we're right back to saying, hey, yeah, home grow, get talented people in, keep them engaged, keep them educated and informed, and make them better at what they do, and they'll stay. What a concept.
Oh, what a novel
Yeah.
concept.
What a concept.
You should market that, trademark that idea, or copyright it, or whatever the heck. Goodness, put a label on it and sell that one, John.
There you go. Well, you mentioned AI, and we had a chance to talk a little bit about it in Chicago, but we know you have a book coming out soon. I don't know, I can't remember exactly when, but a book about artificial intelligence and the implications for us as HR practitioners. And I don't want you to give the entire book away in a minute or two or five, but what would you tell folks that are potential readers? What kind of major takeaways or concepts did you find that they're going to discover in that book?
So the thing that they're going to discover, I hope, when someone reads the book, I hope they get some hope. I've used that word a couple times.
Yeah.
My hope is that they get some hope, because if you read the headlines, you listen to the news, we're all going to be out of jobs really quickly. I better find something else to do. Get my shovel out, start digging some ditches or something, because all of our jobs are going to be automated and we'll all be out of work. In reality, that's not the case. We don't know for sure what's going to happen, and even if some jobs do go away, others will be created. There's no way of just knowing that off the top of our heads. And so one of the things I actually wrapped the book up with this focus on kind of the core human skills that we need to develop in ourselves if we want to remain relevant and valuable as HR leaders, and also develop in our workforce. So if you want to help future-proof yourself and your people a little bit, focusing on those kind of core skills as a way to do that. One of the other things, again, I mentioned a minute ago, really being able to scale up some of the things that we do. I just got the thumbs up. I'm going to be doing a debate style panel in the spring at the Talent Acquisition Technology Trends Conference about whether technology makes work more or less human. And I'm going to focus on some of the AI stuff. And I'm like, I think that I'm a very much an optimist. Spend 2 minutes with me and you'll figure that one out. I think that it makes work more human. I really do, if we approach it the right way. Obviously, there's stories every day. Again, there's a piece in The Guardian last week about all these job seekers saying, I never got to talk to anybody and they rejected me for a job and I've applied and it's a black hole. That is a reality, right? There are more candidates than there are jobs available. And sorry, that's not fair. There are more jobs right now, actually, today.
Yes, I was going to say, wait a minute.
Then there are unemployed. Let's say that, because candidates, there are always more candidates. The stat from a couple of years ago was like 200 resumes per job opening, though, from Glassdoor. And so there's so much noise in there. It's hard to sort through and find the right people. And I don't know about you, but I always have a good laugh at some of the people that come through that apply. You're like, I think you applied to the wrong job, probably. I don't think that we're not the droids you're looking for. I had to slip that in there for John. There's so much noise there. It's a challenge, and the job seekers will always be a little frustrated. But one of the stories I come back to, so if I have time, I'll tell you two quick ones. So one of the companies I talked to, they have a chat bot. So if you go and apply for a job, instead of just shoving your resume in their database, you actually interact with a bot. And it's a bot. It doesn't say that it's John and it's acting like John. It says, hey, I'm a bot. I'm here to help you out with this application process. And at the end of the process, 75% of the people that had gone through that tell the bot thank you. They say thank you. They know it's not a person. It's a machine. It's a computer. I haven't told my computer thank you all week long. And you have to do that because they feel cared for. they feel like they've ever paid attention to, and they appreciate that. So it's really, really exciting. If you have time for one more quick story about human versus machine, it's kind of a cool one. It gives me a really good example for how this works out. You want to hear it?
Absolutely,
hear it.
Ben. We got all the time in the world for you.
Yeah.
I've
if not, I can edit. So.
I've laid the bait out there. You can't say no now. I know it.
Right,
so,
exactly.
There's an event called SourceCon. It's where the best sourcers and recruiters come together and share their ideas, best practices, strategies, tips, tricks for finding the candidates that no one else can find. Okay, even today when we have this really strange market where unemployment rate is so low, they're trying to dig up those candidates that nobody else can find. And so last year they did this thing called the Grandmaster Challenge, where they pitted a bunch of people against an algorithm to see who could recruit and source better. And the way it worked is you had 5,000 resumes and you had 3 job descriptions, and you had to figure out, of those 5,000 actual resumes, which of those people were interviewed and hired for their actual jobs, because these were real jobs that a company had filled in the past. And so you had to look at that and scan it. And drum roll, the humans won. A man named Randy Bailey actually was able to pick all 3 of those people that were interviewed and hired out of 5,000 resumes, which is pretty impressive. I applaud him. And when I talked to Randy, he said it took him between 30 to 40 hours, probably conservatively, to get his calculations all figured out and figure out which ones are the right ones. This is for a volunteer competition that just gets you like bragging rights and me talking about you forever.
Right.
He doesn't win anything else, no prize, nothing else. So Randy won. A pair of people came in second place. They tied for second with a couple correct guesses, but not all correct. The algorithm came in third, and everyone else came after that. But again, remember, it took Randy almost 40 hours to get his guesses in there. The algorithm came in third place, and it took less than 4 seconds for it to figure out its answers to the competition.
Wow.
So the answer to this whole thing is it humans or is it AI? Who's going to win in this thing? The answer should be not either or, but and, right?
Right.
If he had that tool at his disposal to make that first cut, he could have spent maybe 5 hours and got the same answers that it took him 40 hours to get to. And that's what I'm hoping for from a recruiting perspective, from an HR perspective, that we can get better and smarter and faster using the tools so that we can take some of the grunt work out. Lord knows we've got plenty of that. And we can focus on those things that really do matter to the business, the things that when they think HR, they're thinking of those things that we can do for them, not just handling the crazy employee, but really enabling the business to perform better, right? Going back to the career progression conversation a minute ago. How are you going to focus on that when you're just focusing on getting people to work sober, trying to find the right candidate, things like that, dealing with other bad behaviors like some of us have dealt with. So anyway, that's an example I love to share because it sticks in your mind it's not either or, it's really and, right? There's a good way to mix those two things together that we bring, the things that Wendy brings to the table, things that John brings to the table as a great leader in the business, as an HR professional, that a computer simply can't replicate.
And the computer's it's a tool, and that's why I don't understand why people are so afraid of it, because the jobs will change, yes, but
yes.
Why not allow us to do our jobs faster if we're doing the right process? One, if we can do the right thing faster, then amazing. If we can cut that time out of the time to recruit and get those good candidates in the minute that they apply, and not make them wait 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months am I at with one candidate? Eesh. I might call this one a win because we were waiting on a position to be approved. So if I can keep somebody on the hook that long, maybe that's a win.
You take them where you can get them, Wendy. Take them where you can get them.
So, Ben, along with everything else that you do, you also do a podcast and run a conference, and recently took up Disrupt HR as well, which honestly, my goal for next year, I told Christina, 2019 goals, maybe I can get down there for Disrupt in Alabama, because never been to Alabama. It's on my list. But how do you find the time and anything else with all this extra time that you have just laying around? Anything else in the works?
So how do I find the time? The thing that I tell my kids, because again, I work from home, so it's a different kind of situation than some people deal with. But the thing I tell my kids is I love what I do. And I had to explain to them, like, some people don't enjoy what they do. And they're like, why? Like, they do a job they don't like. Someone pays them enough money to just kind of suck it up. And I said, but I really love what I do. And when you love what you do, it's easier to find ways to work it out. I've always been an early bird. So, 5 a.m, I'm sitting at the computer or writing something. And Goodness, that's the only thing that got me through the book, through that process. Should have been a 4:30 in the morning kind of start for every day. But I love getting up early and doing that stuff. That's one of the things. The podcast, you guys know as well as I do. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Is the podcast one of the most fun things that you get to do in your professional career?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I love it. It
Absolutely.
is such a joy. It is such a joy to be able to talk to people and kind of pull their stories out and to, again, share that with someone else that's going to find it valuable and give them a little bit of a boost, hopefully, in their day. When they're dealing with everything else. Beyond that, I'm the president of my local HR chapter. So this year, serving my my term and working through that. That has been so much fun too, because one of the things that I kind of pulled into my realm of responsibility is programming for each event for the year. And so I get to have a little bit of an influence on the development of all the people in our local community. And I think, okay, you probably need to know this, and we haven't had good programming on this ever or in a long time, and so I'm going to make sure that we bring this programming in so that you can really hone this skill or learn this thing and really get better at being an HR leader. It's not – I love some good attorney stuff, but it's not 12 months of don't do this, don't do that, because eventually, you can spend all day telling people don't do this and never give them something to actually aspire to. Right? We can just set that bar as low as possible. Just don't do this this thing, and bad stuff happens. Yeah. So and again, beyond that, 4 kids, that's probably what's taught me to be very productive with the time that I have. Because get your work done or someone's going to burn the house down. And then I love to run, which actually is the thing that probably keeps me sane. It's one of those things I squeeze in whenever I can. And I just love it.
Well, Ben, now it is time for what I am sure is your favorite part of our show and is everyone else's favorite part of our show, the half-hour question connection. So we're excited to start this with you. So our first question, do you remember how you first connected with us, aside from meeting John in the hotel room?
John and I promised never to reveal that publicly, and then here we are. So months and months ago, I don't remember when it was exactly, I was actually running a Twitter chat for a customer of mine, and Christina said, hey, you should probably ask John. No, actually, I don't think she said that. She just tagged John. It's like, John, weigh in, put your thoughts in here, because he was active at the time on Twitter. And so he commented a little bit on performance management practices, things like that. And that was the first pure interaction that he and I had ever had. And it wasn't long after that I started listening to the show and everything else. And then Wendy, I called you one day a couple months ago before Sherm, because I said, hey, I've heard about you. People say nice things. They can't possibly be true. We've got to actually talk on the phone so I can really verify this. And that's how it all worked out.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
We should point out for listeners that Christina is Christina Minyard.
Yes, sorry. We're talking like everybody knows Christina Minyard. You guys have had her on the show though, so everybody
indeed.
Everybody should know she is the Christina Minyard.
There you go.
Yeah, she is the Christina. Who else could you be talking about?
Of course.
Ben, you mentioned early on kind of how you made the transition in your career, progressed along, and mentioned networking. But talk to us a little bit more about networking and how it's worked in your career and what's been a really effective way for you to network.
So it doesn't come across here at all, I'm quite certain, because I do a lot of speaking, but I am incredibly shy. If I walk into a room and I don't know people, I will stand in the corner or I will leave. And I don't hang around. I just leave. So I always try to make sure there's somebody there when I go. So I'm super shy, but I had to learn really early on that I've got to talk to people. I've got to network with them. I've got to connect with them if I'm going to get anywhere. And so I started building those connections very early. And the way I did that was I thought it was genius at the time. I actually volunteered to serve on my local board for the North Alabama SHRM chapter. And I thought, that way I don't have to go talk to people. They'll come talk to me if they need something. And so that's how I started out, kind of just being known locally, and then eventually started kind of speaking and sharing. A woman named Kathy, right now I'm completely blanking on her last name. She said, hey, I think you have a really cool story, and actually talking a lot about networking. She's like, I want you to come and speak to our local chapter. I'm like, haha, no, I don't think so. And 2 months later, I was standing up there talking about the power of networking, power of social media and everything else, and that was 2009, 2010, I think, and just sharing kind of about the value that you can get from that as an HR leader. Networking's played a huge role. The last couple of jobs that I've received were not because I applied somewhere, but because they found me through the social presence and everything else. And or had heard good things from people that knew me. And so there's so many different things that I can point back to that have come from connecting on social and everything else. And it's funny that we're still talking about this like it's a thing, that people maybe are debating or they're not sure about it, but there are still people that I talk to. They're like, yeah, that's just really not for me. I'm like, okay, I hope you like where you are. And I hope you like the circle of friends you have, because it will never really drastically change that.
Yeah.
I think about if I was working in higher education, Wendy and I would talk once a week about strategy and ideas and things that we were working through. And can you believe this employee did this? Or, oh my goodness, look at that. If I was working in, John, you're not in construction specifically, or utilities, something like that. I can't remember the bucket that you fall into, but I'll be calling you all the time. We'd have conversations about that. And people don't think about that. They think, oh, I know enough people. I'm like, but you don't know the right people maybe, or you don't know those people that are doing your same stuff somewhere else. If I said, hey, you can talk to an HR executive on the phone or listen into them whenever you wanted to, most people were like, yeah, I don't have time for that or whatever else. Like, I don't know. I get all crazy about it because I've talked about it for years. And eventually there was a point where I got so tired of trying to convert people that were resistant to it. I said, that's okay. Eventually your business will just not be as good as theirs, because they're going to be smarter, they're going to be better, they'll be faster. If you look at the world as a competition, they're going to get a bigger piece of the pie because you are just kind of sitting back while they are chomping away because they're taking advantage of this resource. So if you don't want to, that's your choice, but be ready for the consequences.
So who do you follow for HR insights?
So the first thing that I thought of when I thought of the question was that I was going to be contrarian and say I have to be careful not to just follow HR insights. I think,
sure,
right, we're business people that work in HR, and so making sure you understand what's going on elsewhere will make you a better business leader, better HR leader as well. So thinking about things, I look for good sources of research, whether it's HBR or something like that. I love those things. If we're looking just at that HR slice, though, if I'm going to bow to the pressure, there are two of the sites that I've read everything that they've written for the last 7 years. One of them is Mike Haberman. He writes about compliance, and I hate compliance, and he writes about it all the time. And if he didn't, I would know nothing about the latest legal stuff and everything else, case law and everything else. And he's just really good at doing it. He's not an attorney, which I like, because he doesn't approach it from that perspective. He's like, hey, you're still a business leader. You still got to get work done. So I'm not going to just say, throw your hands up and say good luck with that, or call me in for a $300 an hour consult. He gets really good insight and advice, and I love Mike's stuff. The other person is Steve Bose. He writes Steve's HR Tech blog or something like that. It's something very plain, but he started podcasting in HR. He started writing about HR stuff years and years ago when he was a professor, and he was just sharing the stuff with his students, like, you need to be aware of this thing, you need to be aware of that thing. And it has morphed over time because his career has changed, but he writes about things that make me stop and think. And about half the things that I read, I go back and read again because I didn't absorb it the first time, because he writes it's an interesting trend or something else. And so I would highly recommend both of those.
Awesome. Good choices.
Ben, you do a lot of giving back. What are your favorite things as far as giving back to the HR community?
I think I tapped on that one a little bit earlier, right? I love the programming. I love the programming stuff. Planning this Disrupt event has been really interesting because the speakers that we have, only maybe 3 of them would be actual speakers at quote unquote normal HR events. I'm wearing my tie, normal HR event. This is a different kind of thing though. And so I love being able to pull in speakers from other areas and bring people in that are going to tell a different kind of story. And that's been so much fun to kind of pull that together with Christina. She's my co-organizer. Really, really pumped. And that's actually happening a week from Thursday. And so I'll be the big sigh of relief on Friday morning that you hear across the United States. That'll be from me. Ready to catch my breath a little bit. But again, I've volunteered in a local chapter in all these different roles. The president role is tough because it demands more time, but it's also the place where you can have the most impact. And so it's been a really interesting challenge and opportunity and privilege to serve this year, all joking aside, to help out and to help grow the 400 plus members that we have in our local area and all the non-members that are kind of scattered throughout. It's so much fun to be able to work with them and help them. And then actually when I started out, writing back in 2009 when I started the blog, and I thought Upstart HR sounds like a really cool idea for a title, and it sounds kind of strange all these years later. Wish I'd picked something more evergreen. But the reason I started writing is I said, I'm getting started in HR. I want to be able to share these insights and ideas with people, and I couldn't find any good sources that were, going back to the thing you were talking about at the very beginning before you introduced me. Thank you, John, for that introduction again, by the way. Before you introduced me, you were talking about the YP writing and sharing resources with that community, and that's why I started writing all those years ago. And so if you go back, a lot of the stuff is about, here's why your degree probably isn't going to get you where you thought it was, or, here's how to look for an entry-level job, or here's the kind of things I did research actually back then into what employers wanted from an entry-level HR candidate, and, how they rated them, how they ranked them, the things that they said were most important for someone applying for a job. And so I try to share that stuff out because you can go anywhere and find some good stuff if you're looking for executive level or strategic level or even specific talent practices. But if you're below a couple years of experience, at that time there was nothing at all for you. And so I wanted to share and support that group. I don't know that you guys had anybody talk about certification on here like ever, but that's another bubble that I really am interested in and have been supporting for a long time, because when I was getting certified, I knew nothing. This is back when you could take it as a recent graduate. You had a kind of an exemption for a year to be able to take it without having to have the years of experience. And so I took my PHR, and I wasn't working in HR yet. And I was like, hopefully this will help me get a job. But everybody that I could find, searching the local HR websites or local websites for different contacts for careers and stuff like that had a PHR or an SPR on the name, I would just send them an email blindly and say, hey, I'm getting ready to take this. What advice would you have? Somebody help me, please. And I got all these people were very willing to share, hey, here's how you plan for it. Here's how you prepare. I recommend this. Stay away from that. People were so willing to share that I said from then on, forever, I said, anybody that ever asked me for help with getting ready for the certification exams, I will say yes, and I will help them to the degree that I can forever, because people were so willing to help then. So it's one of those cool, like, pay it forward things that I love being able to help someone out. When you think about it, I was trying to explain to my wife the other night. She's like, isn't it just a test? I'm like, it's a test. But think about it. She was a teacher too, John. You said your parents were teachers. Think about it like this is when you get your certification. If you don't get it, it might not cost you your job, but it might mean that you can't get that job that you're looking for. It affects your livelihood. There's a lot of research that says it affects your pay rates, things like that. And so I think about the people and their families behind that, and it's not just 3 or 4 letters that they're grabbing. It's an opportunity to change the path of their career for the better. And so it's a bigger meaning than just, they're taking a test for all the naysayers and everybody else out there. So I don't know. I don't know if y'all are that optimistic about the certification stuff, but that's my take on it.
That's a great take. And I like the optimism that you're bringing, Ben. I think we need a little bit of that right now. As I'm wallowing in a little bit of pessimism, I'm so happy to be talking to you, because it's bringing me up and like, all right, let's get excited about this.
All right, we've got a couple more good questions, and I'll continue bringing that joy with me.
Okay, so what is your favorite movie?
I had a hard time thinking of this one because I love, as a kid, like this is our favorite thing to do movie lines and stuff. That was the best thing as a family. We had our own language that just consisted of movie lines for movies. And we just say something and everybody burst out laughing, and the people around us would think there's something wrong with them. There probably was, actually. Looking back now, the movie that I watch every time it's on, if it's the last 3 minutes or if it's the first 3 minutes, I can't pull away. The movie Cinderella Man, about James Braddock, the boxer.
Okay.
And right now I'm blanking on the name of the actor, Russell Crowe. Yeah. When I saw that the first time, I actually was really curious, like, is this super fictionalized, or is this really how it went? It turns out that a lot of the things they put in the movie were true. When he broke his hand and he was actually out of work for a while, he went and had to go stand in line and get food stamps or get money, from the government, get welfare. And when he started winning his fights, he went back and paid back every dime that he had taken out, because he said, someone else needs this more than I do, and I'm paying my money back.
Oh, wow.
And so you think about the different mentality then and the honor and everything else, and it's just one of those movies that I love to see.
Ben, how about your favorite musician or band?
Well, like every good Southern boy, I grew up on classic rock. My very first concert was Boston, but now it's funny. I've shifted a little bit. Really love contemporary Christian, or I guess that's what they call it. I don't even know what the version of it is. But the band that I've seen like 3 times in the last 2 years is For King and Country. Really love their music. My kids love it, and it's something that they can sing to, and I know it's going to be okay for everybody to listen to. Again, with little ones, who knows what they're going to say.
Right.
But if I'm going to be honest, when I'm in the car, I listen to no music at all. If it's just me, there's nothing on unless it's a podcast. I don't listen to any music when I'm in the car. I'm super duper boring that way.
How about a favorite TV show?
I'm a sci-fi nut. I love me some science fiction. And so the two shows that I watch every episode of, The 100, which is a kind of futuristic kind of thing. If you're a sci-fi person, it's worth checking out. And then the other one is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is a blend of sci-fi and some comic stuff. So don't watch a ton of TV, but for the things I do, like as soon as those episodes drop on Netflix, I'm watch all of them within a couple days.
That's one of my husband's favorites, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. So.
Awesome.
I haven't watched that in a while. My 15-year-old gives me the recap on S.H.I.E.L.D. When I look at what we talked about, I have to tell my Cinderella Man story because it still cracks me up. I may have told this on Hostile Work Environment. If I did, I apologize. And if other people have heard it, sorry. I used to work in a really large HR organization. Our staffing team on its own was 30 people. We'd have holiday parties. And we would do white elephant, greedy Santa, whatever you want to call it. But, you bring a gift and then you get a number and then you trade it around. And it could be traded at 3 times, I think, maximum or whatever it was. Well, one year, Cinderella Man DVD was one of the gifts. And a lot of the ladies were swooning over Russell Crowe, and it got traded a couple times. One of the guys that worked for me got it last. After it was over, I said, hey, I haven't seen that movie yet. Look forward to hearing about it, whatever. And he leans in and he says, I actually brought this because I wanted it, and so I figured I'd bring something I wanted. He did that 2 years in a row, and he confided in me that he brought the gift, and he's like, well, I figured if it got traded a couple times, and if my numbers were right, I could get it at the end. The guy gave himself Cinderella Man at the Greedy Santa holiday party.
That is
I love
awesome.
that. It was hilarious.
Like, of all the things you could have picked that you would have wanted.
Yeah.
I give him credit for, he's like, hey, I want to make sure I really would like to have this, and hey, if you got to spend $20 or whatever it was, I'll take it and take my chances. And sure enough, he did it, but he did it 2 years running.
That is awesome. I'll say it's kind of a low stakes thing, right? You hope that you get a high number that you can pull it out and steal it.
Yeah.
It's going to be stolen enough times that you can kill it, with your last steal. So interesting. That's funny.
Ben, if you're not watching Cinderella Man or the 100 Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or listening to no music in the car, I totally get that because I'm with you now. I pretty much podcast only windshield time-wise. But what else do you like to do outside of work?
I mentioned the running thing. I've run a lot of – last year I didn't run hardly any races, but this year I've run a couple. It's been fun. I've really got – I love to do the 5Ks and things. I did a midnight run 3 nights ago. I guess Friday night was a midnight run, it's a lot of fun, especially – this time of year, don't have to deal with the sun, at least, which is nice. Earlier this year, I did a 12-hour race, which was really cool because you have 12 hours to go as far as you want to go, as far as you can go. And there's so many neat people out there. I met a guy that had said, hey, this is a training race for me. I'm doing a 3-day up in New York next month. I'm like, oh, gosh, 12 hours is plenty for me. So I ended up doing 40 miles before I pulled the plug and called it a day because it got really warm. But I just love being able to kind of stretch out and push my limits a little bit. I read a lot. I guess that the reason that I started running farther is because I read a book called Ultra Marathon Man years ago about a guy that realized that his life was completely and totally useless when he was 30 years old, and he started running as a way to kind of for therapy and realized he loved it. And I'm like, well, he can do this. He's doing some crazy stuff like 200-mile races. I'm like, I just want to go out there and see how far I can go. And so I've done a couple of longer events like that, and it's a lot of fun. It's very much the same feeling you get when you're on social or you're hanging out with people at SHRM or wherever else, and you're meeting some of these people that you might not know really well, but you care about the same things. You're passionate about the same things. That's what a lot of trail races are like, because you're all out there, you're all battling the elements or yourself. You're not battling each other as much unless you're in the top 4 or 5 people, and I'm not worried about them. I'm never going to see them again once the gun goes off anyway, but it's really a different kind of feel. And I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, if you run a road race and someone trips, everybody's like, hey, don't screw my time up. If you're running on the trail and someone trips, you have 6 people around you like, hey, you need some water. Are you okay? Can I help you up? Hey, your ankle okay? You need me to tape you up? Like, people are like swarming over you to help versus the other thing. So it's kind of a fun thing. I love the running stuff, and it's been one of those kind of staples of my life longer than almost anything else that I've done. It's one of those things that really defines, I guess, me. wow, I got really existential there at the very end. Sorry. Like, and this is who I am on the inside in my core depths. And, no.
That's the whole point of HR Social Hour. We get high and we go low.
Yes. I'm hoping I'm the high. I was laughing, so I almost drove off the road the other day listening to Dave Ryan give his bio the other day. I almost ran off the road. That was so funny.
Yeah,
I love
his bio is awesome.
So all of our connections. Dave Ryan's wanted to be my adoptive father years ago. He asked if he could adopt me because he kind of looked out for me when I was first starting to volunteer with SHRM and was an inexperienced volunteer hanging out at the VLRC. He's like, come on with me. We go to the Illinois State SHRM stuff. I'll take care of you. And he told me he would adopt me if I ever needed him to. So.
Oh. So more family connections through the HR
I had to
Social
throw that
Hour.
one in there. I couldn't miss that one for sure.
That's awesome. I love it. Finally, Ben, if you weren't practicing HR, what do you think you'd be doing professionally?
It's one of two things. Actually, no. There's so many things. It's if I'm going to give like a serious, like real job answer, it would be something like marketing or economics because I love those practices, those processes. I love the marketing side of the work that I get to do now. Economics has always been a love of mine. I thought I wanted to be an economist at one time. I don't love math as much as I probably should. But if I'm going to give a not so serious answer or one of those things that's in the back of my mind, like one day Ben could be doing this, I want to start a business called Heroes for Hire that I dress up as a hero and instead of doing the princess parties, the kid gets to call and have Batman come to their birthday. Like I want to do that. I want to be running a company and having people go out and doing that stuff. That would be so much fun, which you did not expect probably, but that's the thing. I still talk about it like all the time, like Heroes for Hire. That's what it's going to be called. So anyway, that's a couple things that I could be doing if I wasn't doing what I'm doing right now.
I love that.
Ben, I love it, but I will tell you, you'll have to come up with another name for Heroes for Hire as a Marvel comic.
I know it is. I know.
They will come after you because they have money.
I'll have to change it to a 4 with a letter like the number 4 or something like that.
And don't dress up as you could be.
I can't be Luke Cage or Iron Fist. I've got to stay with
exactly. And you can't be Spider-Man. You'd have to be Arachnid Boy or something. Change up the costumes just a little bit.
Spider Dude.
Spider Dude. There you go. Well, Ben, congratulations. You survived the question connection. You survived the conversation. You survived rooming with me at a major conference. I can't thank you enough, and this is going to be a supersized episode, and I'm excited because, like Wendy said, I really appreciate your energy and your enthusiasm and what you brought to the show. I think people are going to really enjoy it. If people, though, that are listening that aren't familiar with you, now they're going to have to go, as soon as they get off this and turn this show off, they're going to have to go find you. What's the best way for them to reach you out there?
So I was actually going to congratulate you guys on surviving this. Congratulations to you. If they're going to find me, they can go to, I'm on Twitter at Ben Eubanks. Upstart HR is the blog I've been writing for almost 10 years now. Gosh, it's hard to believe. On LinkedIn, there's lots of places to find me. I'd love to chat with anybody. Whatever the topic, it's pretty clear that I love the profession. Hopefully that comes through, and I love the people in it. Just we're blessed to get to do great work, and I'm thankful to know both of you.
We're going to put all that in the show notes, and thank you. Likewise, for sure. Awesome. Wendy, how about you? What's the best way to reach you?
Best way to reach me is always on Twitter. I am Wendell93. You can also find me on my blog, mydailyjourney.com. Daily is D as in dog, AILEY. And happy to connect on LinkedIn as well. Y'all know the drill. Just let me know why you want to connect. And the fourth Sunday of each month, you will find me on Twitter at 7 p.m. Eastern Time as part of the HR Social Hour Twitter chat. How about you, John?
You can always find me on Twitter, John, JON_Thurmond, THURMOND. You want to connect on LinkedIn, I'm happy to do it, and just send me a personalized note. If you have a comment or question about the show or monthly chat, send us an email, hrsocialhourpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook if you search HR Social Hour. I do want to thank all of you that have signed up or liked us in the last many weeks. We've picked up quite a few likes there. We, again, share some content sometimes that we don't share elsewhere. If you aren't liking us and you're on Facebook, go out there and take care of that now. But you can find the show at hrsocialhourpodcast.podbean.com. You can also find us on iTunes, the Podbean app, Podchaser, hrpodcasters.com, Google Play, TuneIn, and Spotify. And as always, if you like what you hear, rate and review. Can't tell you how much it means to us that you do give us the time to give us the 5 stars or the thumbs up and put out a nice note. It really does help boosts the visibility and helps us to continue to build our community. Ben, thanks for being with us. And for the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast, I'm John.
And I'm Wendy. And as always, be sure to connect,
give back, and network.
Network.
Take care, everyone.
We'll see you soon.